Hi to those that are just popping on and joining us. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to hold for just a moment and see if we get a couple more that come on. So we'll just hold for like a minute and get started. We definitely appreciate you making time to do this. We know it's a busy time of year with the holidays and stuff coming up. So thank you for taking a slice out of your day to spend the next 30-ish, maybe hour with us. Also, for those that are here already, Becca is on the presentation as well with us today. So she'll be available to answer any questions that you might have. So if you find that I'm talking about something pops into your mind, feel free to ping us with a quick question and we'll answer them for you. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. And for anybody who jumps in, we'll, of course, be recording this and we'll be sending it out via email after the webinar too. So we're going to start with what we are going to cover today. So a little bit about what we're going to do. My name's Liz. I am one of the travel designers and consultants here at Alluring Africa. And we're going to talk a little bit about geography and then really dive into South Africa as a whole. This is the second in our series of webinars, and we figured South Africa is a great place to start. And again, as I mentioned, if you do have any questions along the way, Becca is here and ready to answer them for you, and or I will pop in and answer them a little later in the presentation. So thanks again for being here, and let's go ahead and dive in. So a little bit about who we are, Alluring Africa, for those of you who might be joining us for the first time. I'm just going to recap quickly. What we specialize in is FIT custom itineraries. Typically, they start around $850 per person per day, but what's the most important thing for us is that we go beyond those pre-packaged itineraries that you see online, the set itineraries. Everything is completely customized to your client's interests, tastes, budget, dates, all of that good stuff. We have a background in travel. Sunit, the owner of our company, was actually born and raised in Kenya, and so he has some long-standing relationships that he has brought into Alluring Africa as a result. And because of this, and our relationships that we have with our partners in Africa, we have a little bit of leverage that really benefits not only you as the agent, but also your clients. So, you know, if they come to you with a last minute request looking for Christmas space, or, you know, it's a really big group and you don't have a whole lot of time to pull it off, we can leverage those relationships and pull those strings for you to make sure that your client's getting exactly what they want. And as a result of that, we have a 99% satisfaction rate with our clients. We are here for the long run. We want to find out who your client is at the very beginning, learn about them, their travel styles, create the itinerary that they're looking for, and then even so much as checking in after the fact to see their photos and hear their stories and all the memories that they created. So we really strive to go above and beyond to make sure that this experience for your clients really truly exceeds every expectation they might have. And as a result, making you guys, the travel agents, look like rock stars. So A lot of questions that we've gotten in the past from agents is, what is the safety and security like? And I recognize that that's really important, especially when you're traveling to a destination that maybe you don't know very much about. So it's interesting. Our suppliers actually have commented to us that we put them through the ringer. No other company is as thorough as we are, making sure that they have the proper insurance and service levels, and really being committed to conservation. So we, of course, would never send any of our guests to Africa without knowing that they were safe and secure, and there was never any risk, to them. So please rest assured that that is of utmost importance, and we are constantly monitoring and keeping an eye on everything that is going on, all things Africa. So a little bit more about us. This is our team. You can see photos of us here. We travel to Africa regularly. Each year, one of us picks a destination that we personally could use some more knowledge and growth in, or that the company as a whole could use more knowledge and growth in. And we all head to a different country. And where the benefit in that is A, we're on top of it. We know the new properties, we know what's going on in terms of conservation, what the land is like, the water levels, all of that. But in addition to that, having the entire team going to different places, we all kind of come back together and share that information and knowledge with each other. So when you contact us for one of your clients looking to put together an itinerary, you're not just working with me, you're working with all of us and the collective knowledge. And frequently we're communicating with each other and talking to each other about that. And beyond that, we also have, the owner of our company was the founder of Safari Pros, which is an organization here in the United States that basically is all the best US-based tour operators in the Africa space coming together and sharing that collective knowledge as well. So rest assured, we know Africa and love to visit it, and we love to send our clients there as well. This is a funny slide. It is really just shows you what the size of Africa is like. It's a huge continent, and it is 3 times the size of just the United States. So a lot of times, clients say, oh my gosh, safari is the trip of a lifetime, and I'm ready to go, but I want to do all of it. And I find that really the priority here is quality over quantity. Connectivity is definitely best when you stick to one region, Eastern versus Southern. And your clients don't want to spend all their time in an airport by popping from place to place. And we really understand what it takes to get to each of the different regions or destinations. So, clients will say, Africa's a once in a lifetime, but we really hope that it's not. And by showing them one particular region, most of the time they come back and they're like, we're already planning our second trip on the flight home. So that is a little bit about just the size of Africa as a whole. So I'm going to show you a brief slide in the next video, or rewind. I'm going to show you a brief video in the next slide that's going to give you a little bit of a taste at everything that South Africa has to offer. All right, so that showed you that basically it's got a little bit of everything, and we'll highlight some of those things as we continue on. A lot of questions that we get are, what are the best time to visit South Africa? And the short answer is there really isn't a bad time to go. Ideally for safari, the best time would be considered May to September, remembering that their seasons are opposite of ours. So our summer, their winter is a great time to see the wildlife. For the hiking and cycling, you can kind of the date window there. There's whale watching. The southern right whale migration happens off the coast of South Africa, which a lot of people are interested in seeing as well. There are two gateway cities. So how do you get there is always a question that's asked. Most will fly into either Johannesburg or Cape Town, and there are direct flights from the United States. So you can either fly direct into Joburg from Atlanta, JFK, or DC. And coming in a couple of days, actually, United is launching a direct flight from Newark all the way to Cape Town. So that's going to kind of change the game, because a lot of clients really like to start in Cape Town before heading on to safari. All right, so let's talk about non-safari destinations first. South Africa is made up of 9 different provinces, and so we're going to start with the Western Cape. It's important to note that South Africa is really a great first-time country for a guest that wants that wildlife experience and is interested in safari, but also might want some urban historical experiences mixed in there. I mentioned Johannesburg as one of the gateway cities that you'll fly into. Sometimes can be a functional overnight. So if the client is looking to go right onto safari, most of the flights arrive in the evening into Johannesburg, so they'll have to do an overnight there. It is, however, a city that has more to offer than just that overnight for connectivity purposes. There's a lot of history in Johannesburg with Soweto, where Nelson Mandela was born and raised. That you can learn about Mandela and his history, apartheid. There's an incredible apartheid museum, and also the Cradle of Humankind is in Johannesburg. So there's the city is really vibrant and is up and coming. Some great restaurants, shopping, and a really unique art scene too. So if you've got clients who are into art at all, you could do like a graffiti tour or go and see some local African artists. So gateway city, functional overnight, but also has a little bit more to offer for those clients who might have interests in those things. And next we're on to Cape Town. I always say that this is a city I could easily spend a week in and not get bored. It has a lot to offer, really, truly. Robben Island is where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. So that is a tour where you can take and hop on a boat and head over to the island, and you actually get a tour by some of the old prison mates. So it's a really interesting historical experience. Bright, colorful town of Bo Kaap. You can get experience with the locals and do a cooking class. As you can see in these images, it truly is, the landscape is this gorgeous coastal city. So you can take a drive down this coastal road to some lookout points, get to see the penguins playing around on the beach, which is pretty unique. Head to the Cape Point and the Cape Peninsula. There's hiking where you can go and hike Table Mountain, which is the iconic mountain in Cape Town. Or you could take the cable car if you or your clients aren't really interested in breaking a sweat. But if your clients are more active, they can definitely do hikes here as well. There's art museums, there's food, amazing food, so many different options. And we can easily work on creating reservations for your clients at those restaurants too. Fantastic shopping. All in all, it's just a really vibrant city that has so much to offer. And truly, at a minimum, I would say if clients want to go all the way down to Cape Town and combine it with safari, you want at least 3 nights to really experience it. But 4 or 5 is probably going to be the better number, if you will. And just outside of Cape Town, you have the Cape Winelands. It is also stunning landscape. There are various wine tastings that you can do. There's these cute little villages in and around the winelands themselves where you can do some shopping and do, again, amazing restaurants. I mean, you're talking Michelin star type rating restaurants out there. And it's only an hour away from Cape Town. So the beauty of that is if your client wants to really see the Cape Winelands and has an interest in the experiences out there, it can easily be done in a day trip. And in addition to that, there are ways to still do it combining it with other points of interest in Cape Town. So if you have that client that's interested in this type of experience, it's definitely worth it. For your more romantic or maybe your more laid back clients that are really looking to just kick back and relax for a couple nights, the Winelands is a beautiful place to do that. It really has some incredible accommodations too as well. All right, so moving up the coast a bit, there is Hermanus. This is about a 2-hour drive from Cape Town. It does combine really well with Cape Town City, as well as other safari destinations, because you can make this drive and still fly out. There is a nature preserve there called Grupos, and it is really nature focused. So they have endemic species of flora and fauna that have been discovered at Grupos. During that whale watching season that I mentioned, this is a fantastic place to go out and kind of get an ocean safari, which is neat. But there's other things too, like whale watching and going into the caves, and it's really just a beautiful landscape that is definitely worth 2 or 3 nights if your clients have the time. Now, it's not a big 5 safari experience, but it is that safari experience in terms of service and food and accommodation style. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a quick video that's going to give you like a visual representation of the landscape and the activities, so you can get a better picture of that. Or not, because the video is not going to play. Sorry about that. Okay, well, it's giving me some trouble. So I'll just basically say there's a reforestation program there where you can, we just did a gift for one of our agents, a birthday gift where they plant a tree. There's floral safari, shark cage diving if that's an interest. Some people are really into birds because there are so many unique and interesting birds that migrate or make their home in Africa. So it's great for birding as well. Nature walks and hikes too. This is one of my favorite properties. It's when I walked in, it just felt like this magical forest experience. So it's definitely worth checking out and recommending to the client who might have an interest in that. All right, so we talked about the non-safari experiences. Let's talk about safari, because that really is when people think South Africa or Africa in general, that's what they're after, right? So there are quite a few different places that you can actually go on safari in South Africa, and the following slides will highlight the various regions. Depending on the amount of time that your client has, we usually recommend a minimum of 3 nights in each safari location. And the reason for that is so that they can really tuck in and get to know the land and the guide and experience where they are, because the lodge itself is an experience even beyond the game viewing. But if you're out tracking lions the night before and you don't get a chance to see them, it might be kind of cool to wake up in the morning and see if you can. So it is 3 nights is the recommendation. Now, of course, they can go longer than that if they've got 6+ days, but we understand that not everybody can take 3 weeks off. So when you're talking to your clients, just be sure to recommend 3 nights. Safari is typically all inclusive. So this is going to be your meals and your drinks, including alcoholic, not champagne and maybe some of the cellar wines, but the alcohol that they do have that's included is really great, because you're going to bring in those South African wines from like the Winelands and stuff like that. It's got your meals, it's got your drinks, and it's got your activities. So your twice daily game drives, depending on the location. You've also got night drives available, walking safaris, stargazing. I always tell my clients, you will never go hungry on safari. The food is not only delicious, but they feed you quite often. So it's that in and of itself is an experience. And truly, safari can be good for all ages. There are camps that are designed specifically for families or specifically for honeymooners, or maybe even multi-gen, where you've got, grandma's celebrating her 70th and wants to bring the whole family together. There are properties that are good for that as well. So the safari is good for everyone. We're going to start with probably the most well-known safari region in South Africa, and that is Kruger National Park, as well as the reserves adjacent to it. As you can see in this picture, Kruger's really big. It's basically the size of New Jersey, and it is a national park that is open to the public and also the locals. But in those lighter green sections, those are private conservancies. Now, the benefit of staying in the private conservancy is that it's going to give you access to walking safaris. It's going to give you the opportunity to do night drives where you might get a chance to see nocturnal animals. There's a limited number of guests in that area, which means that it's going to feel more intimate and more exclusive, whereas in the national park, like I mentioned, it is open to the public. These private conservancies are they're privately owned, or they might be rented from the locals. And as a result, the properties within those conservancies have a bit more control, which allows things like off-roading, making sure, of course, that it's not disturbing the ecosystem. But the animals feel safe in these conservancies because they all have different ways of protecting and conserving the animals with anti-poaching units and that sort of thing. And if that's a client's interest, that can absolutely be arranged so that they can learn more about the efforts that go into conserving the animals. But as you can see here, it says that it's unfenced. So the animals can freely roam from Kruger National Park into these private conservancies. And as I mentioned, they really do like to be in the conservancies because they feel safe. So it's a really incredible game viewing experience with a little bit more flexibility. Within the private reserves that I just mentioned, there are a couple that we typically will recommend to book into. So you probably have heard of the Sabi Sands if you have heard anybody speak about Africa or about Kruger in South Africa. There's also Timbavati and Thorny Bush. These are private conservancies. And then within those conservancies, different properties have plots of land that are theirs to traverse on. The wildlife here is abundant. There is no shortage of animals to see, including the big five. So a great chance to see rhino, which I know is a draw for people, but also probably the best leopard sighting you're going to get. I mean, truly incredible cat sightings here. In these conservancies, also the walking safaris, I always recommend to clients, it's not only does it feel good to get out of the vehicle and stretch your legs when you've been driving for 3 or 4 hours, but you get to experience the bush from a different perspective. You get to learn about the ecosystems and how the animals and the land all work together and coexist. And it's a really fascinating way to really understand the land. So I always recommend get out of the car and take that walking safari as one of your activities. So this is a question we often get is where are the malaria-free areas in South Africa for safari? And if you're not familiar, malaria is basically it's basically like a flu that you get, and it's transmitted through mosquitoes. Now, it is not fun, and there are families that are you bringing young kids and there might be a concern for that. So some clients want to know, like, where can I go and not have to worry about it? Malaria, it's not an inoculation. It's actually a pill that you'll get from your doctor, and you take it a couple days before you leave, the duration of your trip, and for a couple days after you get back. And it's it's important that we highlight the areas where you don't have to worry about that, because in South Africa, there are no vaccines required. The only recommendation is malaria medication if you're heading to an area that might have had it. So why choose a malaria-free destination? Probably for families and honeymooners who might have a concern about that. So in the next couple slides, we're going to talk about the safari destinations within South Africa that are malaria-free. First is Madikwe. What makes Madikwe stand out, in my opinion, is that it's a 4 to 5 hour drive from Johannesburg. So it's the only safari destination that within South Africa that you don't have to fly to, which is kind of convenient. And it's truly a conservation success story. It used to be farmlands, and they took it back, and over 10,000 animals were reintroduced into the reserve, and it's truly thriving now. It is a big five destination, and there's also wild dog, which is more of a unique sighting that you might not see in, say, Kruger, for example. So there are clients who have been like, where can I go see wild dog? And this would be one of those places. Yay, this video works. So I believe we're not getting sound on it though. So if basically this is just going to kind of give you a visual representation of what Madikwe looks like. This video is about a National Geographic photographer who went out into the reserve and was really truly blown away with the relaxed nature of the animals, by the proximity in which he was able to get to them, and just in the abundance overall of the animals that he was able to experience. You can see he obviously got very close. Truly, there is nothing better than an African sunset, and if you haven't seen one yet, I highly recommend it. Okay, so moving on to the next reserve we're going to talk about is Phinda. What makes Phinda unique is that there are actually 7 distinct ecosystems within that reserve. So you could be in the forest one day, in the grasslands in another, and headed to the ocean. Because of its proximity to the ocean on the coast, you can also do we'll call it a surf and turf safari, right? So you can go snorkeling or maybe go see those whales that I mentioned, but also really get a fantastic safari experience on land as well. It is an incredible place to see cheetah and black rhino, and they're also really making strides in pangolin conservation, which is really fascinating. If you don't know anything about it, maybe write that down and check it out. It's pretty fascinating. But in addition to that, they have introduced recently an infrared nighttime safari. So getting a chance to see it's dark, right? So this gives you an opportunity to really see the bush come alive at night in a very vibrant way. Next, we're going to talk about Kalahari. So this is South Africa's largest game reserve, and it's huge, 20 times the size of Manhattan. And what's really interesting about this particular reserve, there's only one property on it, and that property is the largest privately that property being on the largest privately owned game reserve really makes you feel like you are in the middle of nowhere, having this really unique and authentic experience. So it also has some rare wildlife sightings that maybe you wouldn't get to see in other places. Again, I mentioned kind of like in Madikwe, wild dog, pangolin, meerkat. And beyond that, they have other activities like horseback riding and walking safaris. And it really is just a unique wildlife experience out here. A little bit of a slower pace, but still fascinating and really incredible. Beyond that, they just went through an extensive redesign. So the property was stunning before, and now it's even more beautiful, if that was even possible. And they've brought in a Michelin star chef to handle all of it. So you are getting an incredible culinary experience at the same time. Another thing that makes this property unique is that every booking that comes in receives its own private guide, tracker, and vehicle. So in other safari properties, you might have a total of 6 guests per vehicle. And trackers are pretty common in safari in South Africa. A tracker is basically, you've got your guide who is driving the vehicle, and the tracker is sitting on a seat in front of the vehicle, like right on the hood. And so the tracker is constantly scanning and surveying the land while and communicating with the guide to keep an eye out for those best animal sightings. So having your own vehicle guide and tracker can make the experience really incredible for maybe a honeymoon couple that really just wants to be in their own little space, or a family, perhaps, of 4, like 2 adults and 2 kids. And the last game reserve we're going to talk about is Shamwari. Also a Big 5 destination. It is malaria free, and it's just outside of Port Elizabeth. So it's a quick flight from Cape Town, about an hour and 20, or from Joburg, hour and 45 minutes. So you can very easily get there. And the same with any of the safari destinations we spoke about. The connectivity is really great. And of course, we'll help you with all of that in the itinerary. So there's no question about where am I going? Shamwari is really good for great first-time safari goers. I would consider this to be more of like a moderate entry-level type experience in terms of like lodge and accommodation, but it's definitely worth mentioning and is really fantastic for families. Okay, so we covered all of the safari destinations within South Africa of note, and we're going to talk about some itineraries. So we went ahead and put together a couple sample itineraries that we will send out to you in links in the follow-up email. But here are some ideas on how to put together a great South Africa itinerary. So here you can see you can do an overnight in Johannesburg. As I mentioned, that is a functional overnight because flights arrive in the evening, but there's some fantastic properties in and around Johannesburg where the clients can come in and have a delicious meal and rest and recover from the jet lag before heading out to safari the next day. So we combined on this itinerary both Sabi Sand Game Reserve, which was one of the reserves outside of Kruger at one of the properties, as well as Phinda, which we talked about as well along the coast. So it's 3 nights in 2 different safari properties, and then ending in the Cape Winelands for a nice relaxing experience. The pricing you can see is about $9,200 per person, and that includes everything within the itinerary. So the only additional costs would be dinner in Joburg and dinner in the Cape Winelands. And I got one more itinerary example for you. This one is going to give you more of a focus of spending time in Cape Town at the Cape Grace, which is one of the most well-known luxury properties, very old world opulent style. Then you'll drive by road up to Grootbos, which I mentioned, which is going to give you that landscape of flora and fauna and whale watching and just absolutely beautiful garden landscape. And then from there you fly to Madikwe, which is one of the malaria-free properties where you'll spend 4 nights at a really funky lodge that's actually privately owned and been opened up to the public. And it's not only is it in a great location of Madikwe, but it also is full of art and really unique art pieces. So kind of a funky, cool experience for that client who might also have an interest in art, or they have a really well kept expansive library too. So that one's about $12,000 per person per night. And again, it includes everything while you're on the ground, how to get from A to B, getting picked up at the airport, all that good stuff. And with these itineraries, we do it all on a digital system called Wetu. And what's great about that is we can white label it for you. So you tell us, hey, here's my logo, here are my contact details. We will put all of your information on it, and you can send this link out to the clients. And it's going to go through in detail on this link, everything about their trip, not only where they're going, how and when, but it also breaks in a little bit deeper into the destinations and learning about the destinations. So it's a really fantastic tool that you can easily send over to your clients, and we're happy to do that for you. There are a couple different extensions that are pretty popular when clients come and they're interested in doing South Africa. So there are flights that might route through Dubai, and sometimes the clients will be like, wow, I've never been to Dubai and I'm flying through there, so can I stay for a couple nights? Absolutely. We have partners in each of these areas as well, so we can arrange that for you if you'd like. And you could spend like 2 nights in Dubai, maybe 3, depending on the clients and their interest. Another popular extension is Vic Falls. What's great about Vic Falls is that it's so easily connected. There's even a flight to get you out of the Sabi Sands all the way up to Vic Falls on a direct flight. So from Cape Town, from Joburg, it's very easy to get there. Vic Falls is on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe, and is a great 2, maybe 3 night extension for your clients who might want to check that off their list. And we can arrange that for them. Vic Falls has a variety of experiences, from laid back sunset river cruises down the mighty Zambezi to bungee jumping and zip lining. So this is a great one that a lot of people will tack on. And then you've got your clients who might be looking to just chill out on the beach at the end, that bush and beach experience, maybe your honeymooners or a retired couple that just wants to kick back with their toes in the sand. Mozambique is really well connected, and there's some fantastic properties there that we can recommend for your clients. And I just want to touch on, because I think it's important, that Africa really is for everybody. No matter the age, no matter the size, no matter the interests, there is a way that we can cultivate and create an itinerary that's truly focused around your client's interests. If they want to go on a yoga retreat, cool, we can make that happen. There's even some fantastic golf courses. So keep that in mind for your clients who maybe aren't like, I don't know how I feel about animals. I'm not sure I want to go on safari. South Africa has more to offer than just that, and we can put something together for them around their interests. This picture up with the rhino is actually really cool. I'm going to touch on that real quick. So as I mentioned, conservation and sustainable tourism is a huge part of our ethos here, and what we want to support in Africa, because we want these animals to be there for future generations to come, right? So if you've got a client who is really interested in conservation efforts, there's even ways for us to pair them up with collaring experiences where they can go out with the vets and the doctors and dart well, they're not going to do it, but it'd be a part of the experience where they can go and see what it is when they're collaring an elephant, or notching a rhino. And by doing that, they're able to track and keep an eye on the animal and their behaviors and what they're doing and how they're doing, so that we can continue to learn and make sure that we're helping and not hindering these animals and their lives in Africa. So I think that's really, really special. So I'm sure that you hear the word luxury, and what exactly does that mean? And I think the word luxury is something different for everyone. So Africa's really got it all in terms of accommodation and style. You can go with that more modern, clean lines, light colors experience. You have a more traditional safari where you've got feels like that out of Africa experience that people dream about or talk about. Or you could go with a little bit more eclectic and funky. So really, again, it's important to know what kind of style your client has so that we can help pair them with that experience. Even insofar, that we take the luxury up another notch, and we can talk about private planes that can take them around from A to B, or taking exclusive use of a property where there's no other guests on the property except them, bringing in Michelin star chefs, booking private guides and private vehicles, butler service, all that kind of stuff. So no request is too grand, and we can definitely pull off some pretty unique and cool things for those clients who are looking for that. Okay, so a couple of just odds and ends, those things that don't fit anywhere else but are worth mentioning, is the booking window. So I did say that we could pull strings and manage to get your clients last minute space or find space where there maybe wouldn't have been otherwise, but we do recommend a booking window of about 12 months in advance. It allows us to guarantee that we have the pick of the litter in terms of putting the clients at the right spot. A lot of the safari properties might have 6-10 tents, and in peak season, those book up pretty quickly. So 12 months would be great, but we can pull it off in shorter if you need us to. The peak season I mentioned, kind of May, June to August, September. But shoulder season is a really great time to travel as well. So maybe your client is looking for that luxury experience, but doesn't necessarily have the budget to support it. If you can guide them into booking into shoulder season, you can get up to 30% off some of these properties, which is really a fantastic deal. And there's a benefit in that for a couple different reasons. One, it's not as busy or as crowded, so they feel like they're getting a more intimate experience. Two, obviously the cost. But there are, going in February, you've got green lands and lots of flowers and tons of baby animals. So there are really great times to go to Africa other than peak season. And there's a great cost savings. So did anybody have any questions that maybe I can help out with? All right, well, if you don't have any, that's fine. If we end the webinar and, oh, somebody raised a hand. Hi, Bill. You want to go ahead and type that into the chat box? All right, well, I'm not seeing, I didn't see anything come through, but Bill, if you do, oh, more people raising hands. Yes, so Shamwari is near Port Elizabeth, so that would be the airport that you would fly into. All right. So if we end, as the webinar comes to a close, if something pops into your head and you're like, oh, I forgot, feel free to email us. I'll share my contact details on the last slide. So don't hesitate to reach out with questions. We are here to support you, and I'm happy to pop off any answers that I might be able to come up with for you. Durban. Durban is great. It is not as common that most people want to go to Durban, more of a coastal beach type town. So when you're asking about Durban, is it, are you wanting to know, is it worth going to, or do we book it? Because we can. If you have a client who comes to you specifically and says, I really want to go to Durban, then we can absolutely take care of that for them. All right, I'm going to flip through a couple more slides. We're getting ready to wrap up, but if you, oh, okay, yeah. So I think it would be important, we want to make sure, Hazel asked that she's got someone who wants to go to the beach in Durban. And yes, we can do that. I think it would be good to know what pulled them to Durban specifically, because there are some really fantastic beaches, as I mentioned, in like Mozambique and that sort of thing. So it would be good to know what made them pick Durban, but we can totally arrange that. We'll just want to make sure that it is at the right time of year and it's not cold. Okay, so we talked about South Africa, but we also cover Eastern and Southern Africa. So this is a list of all of the countries that we work with beyond just the safari destination. We can do, for example, like Egypt or Jordan, Israel, Morocco, those kinds of things. So if you have the client who isn't driven towards the safari, but is looking for a different African experience, we can help them with that as well. So Africa's great. What next? Stay tuned. We will send you an email shortly after this that's going to have a recording of it, as well as those links that I mentioned with the sample itinerary, so they are just ready to go to send out. Of course, if you want us to white label them for you, that doesn't take very long at all, so we can do it pretty quickly. We will send out as well access to a travel agent portal. So as we continue to do these series of webinars, they will all be saved in there, so you can kind of roll back and rewatch something. The PDF will also be saved in there too. And we're just putting information in it that we think would be helpful to help you sell Africa. There are a couple new fam trips we're looking to put together coming in 2020, so keep an eye out for those too. We're thinking of, we're working on putting together something for Morocco, for Tanzania, and possibly even also Botswana. Obviously not on the same trip, but those are the ones that we're working on right now. So we will send that out to you shortly. And I just want to say, we are here if you need us. So let us be your expert in the background. If you don't feel confident talking about Africa yet, I'm happy to hop on a call with you first, and I can give you some talking points that you can share with your client, or beyond that, happy to open up and do a conference call with them where we all loop in together, and then the clients can ask the questions directly. I'm happy to answer them. We absolutely protect your relationship, and it's really important that is protected. So let us be your expert and answer those questions and really help you close that sale, because Africa is an incredibly lucrative destination to sell, and one Africa booking makes up several cruise bookings, right? So I can help you talk to the clients about setting the expectations and really putting together that epic trip for them. And so that brings me to the end. Here are our contact details. You, again, feel free to email me if you have any questions. We will send those links out. This is my direct line, so you, of course, are welcome to call, and I'm happy to chat about all things Africa at any time. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Keep an eye out. We'll be working on our next one probably after the new year, where we dive into a new country. And again, thanks for taking time out of your busy day to share it with us. I got one more question. Hi, Gretchen. Oh, that's awesome. Gretchen and I actually went to South Africa together 5 years ago. Stayed at an incredible property in the Sabi Sands called Earth Lodge. Look it up if you've never seen it. All right, well, thanks again so much for joining, and I will hopefully talk to you all at some point soon.